Let's be direct. A witness has stepped forward. Not a pundit, not a detractor, but a staff member who was present during Meghan Markle's 2019 visit to an animal shelter at a time when she was publicly pregnant with Archie. This woman was working on site that day. She was not press. She was not there for performance. She was there to do her job. And according to her testimony, what she observed during that visit is not merely troubling, it directly contradicts the narrative presented to the public. She recalls the day vividly because of the restrictions. No personal recording, no photographs, no discussion of the visit beyond official coverage. Every camera inside that building was controlled by Meghan Markle's team. That detail matters, because when something went wrong, there was no independent footage to challenge the official version. According to the witness, the visit proceeded normally until Meghan knelt down. That is the moment everything changed. A sound, not loud, but distinct enough to register. A pop. The witness states she looked up immediately, as did others nearby, because the shape of Meghan Markle's pregnant abdomen altered in real time. Not gradually, not naturally. It dropped. She says the belly visibly deflated as Meghan knelt, prompting noticeable reactions from those close enough to witness it. Moments later, Meghan excused herself to the restroom. The witness says she observed her adjusting the belly before returning. No explanation, no statement, just silence. The palace is aware of this. She states the palace has been directly informed that a woman who stood mere feet from Meghan Markle during a royal engagement is prepared to publicly recount what she witnessed. And what she witnessed, according to her account, was a deception so reckless it now threatens the integrity of the monarchy itself. This is not a gentle story. This is not a comfortable story. And it is not disappearing. Because when fear fades, secrets become audible. And this one made a noise. Let's be absolutely clear about what this story is not. This is not about clothing. This is not about body commentary. This is not about personal dislike of Meghan Markle. This is about fraud, deception, and authority. Under British constitutional law, a child placed in the line of succession must be born of the body of the woman claiming motherhood. There is no alternative. There is no modern revision. There is no emotional exemption. Attempting to present a child who does not meet that requirement as legitimate while receiving titles, security, wealth, and status is not confusion. It is legally defined as fraud. And when that deception intersects with succession, it escalates into something far more serious, historically understood as treason. That is why this story provokes fear. That is why media organizations hesitate. And that is why, according to multiple sources, the palace did not move to investigate, but to contain. Because if this allegation collapses, it does not stop with Meghan Markle. It implicates every official who remained silent, every institution that chose avoidance, every gatekeeper who helped keep the curtain drawn. And now someone who was inside the room says that curtain slipped. After the pregnancy incident occurred, staff did not rush online. They did not leak to tabloids. According to her, they asked one question: what did we just witness? The answer they received provided no reassurance. They were told Meghan was wearing a prosthetic pregnancy belly, not because she was not pregnant, but to protect the real pregnancy beneath it. Let's repeat that carefully. A false belly to shield a real one at a secured venue with royal police protection, controlled access, and vetted press. This explanation does not merely defy logic, it insults it. Pregnant women do not wear prosthetics to conceal pregnancies. Royal women do not require disguises at private charity engagements, and no medical professional would ever advise applying artificial pressure over a genuine pregnancy. The staff understood this. The witness understood this. And critically, the palace understood it made no sense either, because instead of clarifying or investigating, they shut the discussion down. No dialogue, no follow-up, no public clarification. That silence was not accidental, it was deliberate. This is where the palace misjudged both the public and its own staff. They believed the explanation that Meghan wore a fake belly to protect a real one would close the matter. Instead, it ignited a firestorm. Because here is what fails scrutiny. Meghan Markle already had armed protection. The shelter had already been secured and vetted. Nothing in that environment required additional protection for her abdomen. And more importantly, if the prosthetic was protective, why did it collapse, fold, and shift visibly? Why did Meghan allegedly retreat to the restroom to readjust it? Why were staff prohibited from recording unless footage belonged to Meghan's team? Why did witnesses report handlers becoming visibly tense immediately after the incident? Why was the explanation delivered with a clear message, not to ask further questions? And if the story was truly harmless, why did the palace allegedly resort to threats, incentives, and enforced silence? Because a false pregnancy is not a style choice. A false pregnancy intersects with royal law, royal protocol, and royal succession. And if Meghan was not pregnant, and the palace knowingly presented a child as legitimate royal issue, that is not public relations. That is not optics. That is constitutional. That is legal. That is succession-level territory. And that is precisely why the explanation of a fake belly for protection resolved nothing. It exposed everything. Because once you accept that the bump was not authentic, you are forced to confront the question the palace has spent years avoiding. So, where did Archie come from? And that is exactly why this controversy refuses to fade. This is where the story expands. Because the palace does not function in isolation. It operates through patterns. And when you examine how other insiders who spoke out were handled, the witness's fear begins to make sense. Consider Paul Page, a former royal protection officer, a man who guarded Prince Andrew, a man who openly acknowledges his own flaws, including a prior fraud conviction. But here is the uncomfortable reality. Many of the warnings he issued later proved accurate. And when he declined to stop speaking, he received a formal letter dated December 2025. Not a lawsuit, not an inquiry, a warning, a reminder of confidentiality obligations long after his service ended. Anyone familiar with institutional language understands what that letter truly conveys. We are watching. We can reach you. And silence is expected. Sources close to Page indicate that warning did not originate from low-level administration. It came from the palace itself. And if a trained former protection officer is subjected to that degree of pressure, consider the position of a civilian woman who simply went to work one day and witnessed something she was never meant to see. She has no credentials, no legal insulation, no institutional protection, only a memory and a truth that refuses to remain buried. And that is why this witness is afraid. Because this is no longer solely about Meghan Markle. This is about what occurs when an institution decides silence outweighs truth and begins reminding individuals of their place. Now let's examine the silence, because silence of this magnitude is never accidental. When the witness concluded she could no longer remain quiet, she did not begin on YouTube. She did not seek virality. She did not attempt to monetize her account. She did what people are advised to do when they believe they possess something serious. She approached the press. She contacted major newspapers. She made phone calls. She sent messages. And one by one, the doors closed. Including the Daily Mail, a publication known for printing nearly everything royal, flattering or otherwise. According to her account, calls were not returned. Messages were ignored. No follow-up, no curiosity. This was not rejection. It was avoidance. And that distinction matters. Because weak stories invite scrutiny. Journalists challenge them. They ask questions. They demand evidence. But dangerous stories are not challenged. They are avoided entirely. And that is when you understand this is no longer gossip. It is institutional risk. The witness says she felt it immediately. Not doubt. Not disbelief. Fear. Now let us reopen a file. Buckingham Palace would prefer remain closed. The Frogmore Cottage tweet. May 6, 3:02 a.m. A brief message posted, then deleted within minutes. It stated, "The Duke and Duchess of Sussex used the services of a surrogate. We apologize for any misunderstandings." One would expect a claim of that magnitude to be instantly refuted by the palace, by the press, by Prince Harry, by Meghan Markle, by anyone. But here is the uncomfortable fact. To this day, no official has conclusively demonstrated that tweet was false. Not one. It circulated online, was captured, reposted, archived, and then the silence followed. And as this analysis has stated repeatedly, silence is strategy. Because if Meghan Markle had unquestionably carried Archie herself, the palace could have issued a single sentence. That is false. End of discussion. But they did not. Not in 2019. Not in 2020. Not in 2021. Not ever. Instead, the tweet was treated like radioactive material. Too dangerous to touch. Too lethal to acknowledge. Why? Because under royal succession law, the phrase, born of the body, is not poetic language. It is legal language. It is binding. It determines inheritance of the throne. If Archie was not born of Meghan's body, then Archie cannot legally be placed in the line of succession. That is not scandal. That is constitutional crisis. And when you combine that with the alleged belly collapse, the witness testimony, and reports of palace pressure, the surrogacy theory stops sounding fringe. It begins sounding contained, almost too contained, like the explanation they hoped would never be forced into daylight. Now consider the next royal warning sign, one that should have dominated headlines across Britain. When Archie was born, newspapers confidently reported that the delivery was performed by Dr. Penelope Law, the Countess of Bradford, Britain's most elite obstetrician. Prestigious title, impressive credentials, royal appropriate. Except there was a problem. Her husband, the Earl of Bradford, immediately stated publicly, "My wife did not deliver Archie. The paper never verified its reporting. Sit with that." Because it means the official birth narrative was incorrect. The press published false information. The palace did not correct it. And to this day, no one has named the actual doctor. We still do not know who delivered Archie, where the delivery occurred, or whether Meghan Markle gave birth in a hospital at all. Because there were no photographs of Meghan entering a hospital. No medical team standing proudly outside afterward. No traditional Lindo wing steps moment. No visible staff witnesses. Not a single nurse or midwife has ever been identified. A royal family that documents every milestone left the public with an empty space where a birth record should exist. And every time someone attempts to address that gap, the palace closes the door. But an empty space does not eliminate truth. It reveals it. So let's remove emotion and deal strictly with facts. Under British law and constitutional convention, a child must be born of the body of the woman, claiming motherhood to be eligible for the line of succession. There is no surrogate exception, no modern reinterpretation, no public relations workaround. That rule exists to protect the legitimacy of the crown. So if a child is knowingly presented as eligible when they are not, and that presentation is used to obtain titles, public funding, security, and inheritance, that is not a private issue. That is fraud. And when fraud alters succession, it enters the historical category of treason. That is not dramatic language. That is legal terminology. Which explains why this allegation did not prompt transparency. It prompted panic. Because this is not about humiliation. It is about reversing decisions that were already formalized, announced, celebrated, and financially supported. And once that machinery is in motion, stopping it becomes far more difficult than telling the truth. This leads to the question no one wants to answer aloud. Who knew? According to multiple accounts cited in this investigation, the palace was informed directly, clearly, and early. But an important distinction is being drawn. The claim is not that the Queen was immediately aware. In fact, the suggestion is the opposite, that she was shielded, that senior officials chose to manage the issue internally, believing they could contain the consequences quietly, the way large institutions often attempt to manage inconvenient realities. But something shifted. Observers point to subtle yet telling signs, including the quiet removal of Archie-related imagery from later royal materials. Small moments that suggest unease, reassessment, and internal concern. Because even within the palace, people eventually recognize when a narrative does not hold. And once enough people are aware, silence stops serving as protection. It becomes evidence. Here is the part they never wanted examined. This story is not finished. Because now there is a first-hand witness who says she saw Meghan Markle adjusting a collapsing false bump. A palace that allegedly attempted to buy her silence. Warning letters reportedly linked to King Charles. A physician who publicly denied delivering Archie. A surrogacy tweet that was never conclusively debunked. And a royal family that remained silent while the public accepted a version of events that does not align with the available evidence. And the central question still hangs over all of it. If Meghan did not give birth, who did? And more importantly, why did the palace help conceal it? This is no longer rumor territory. This is structural. This is historical. This is royal lineage-level truth, and the palace understands that. So here is what comes next. If you are tired of diluted royal narratives, follow this podcast. If you want the stories Buckingham Palace would rather you never hear, subscribe. And if this episode struck you as bold, wait until you hear what comes next. Because this witness is not finished speaking, and neither are we.